video is all about the 10 royal rules why tiaras are worn. And there actually are rules to wearing a tiara. And in fact, I know some of those rules because I wore a tiara myself at my wedding. So when I married into the aristocracy, the Earl of Sandwich family, there was actually, and there is actually, a Montague family tiara. I was able to wear this, but I'm going to tell you the whole story about kind of how the tiara, putting it on my head, etc., all happened at the end of this video. So be sure to stay to the end of this video because I think you're really going to enjoy this story. Listen, I'm an all-American girl from Illinois, and personally, I kind of thought that tiaras were, only worn by royals, if you like, but also tiaras are things that we see in these wonderful royal documentaries, royal movies, royal TV series like The Crown. And it's wonderful to be able to watch those films, of course, and in one sense sort of fantasize. And I think for many of us, we just think, well, great, we just take the tiara, we put it on the head, we sparkle, we dance the night away, and that's the end of it. But no. There are actually 10 royal rules when you wear a tiara. Rule number 1 is that the first time you can wear a tiara is at your wedding. So prior to getting married into nobility or into the royal family, you shouldn't have worn a tiara prior to that. The first time you have worn or should wear a tiara, if you're marrying into, again, the royal family or nobility, is on your wedding day. However, Princess Margaret, we know that she was this big rule breaker anyway. Princess Margaret, a few decades ago, wore tiaras to everything, to theaters, to dinners. So she really enjoyed wearing the tiaras. But now it's sort of common knowledge that the first time you wear your tiara is when you're about to be wed. Whether they're blood princesses like Princess Eugenie or they're marrying into the royal family like Kate Middleton or Meghan Markle, the rule is that no matter if you're a blood princess or not, the first time you should wear a tiara is on your wedding day. Rule number 2 is that tiaras are not to be worn until after 5 p.m. Now, there is some leeway to that, of course, and I'll explain that in a second, but overall, you don't put your tiara on until after 5 p.m. Well, because also the diamonds will sparkle a little bit more in the night. That could be one reason for that. And for usually the evenings are where more formal occasions are. So even formal events that are held during the day at royal palaces, you probably wouldn't see a member of the royal family donning a tiara. However, there is an exception to this rule, and most royal weddings happen at 11 a.m. So they happen at 11 a.m. and that is again, an exception to the rule that, of course, you can wear your tiara when you're getting married at 11 a.m. Kate Middleton, Princess Diana, Meghan Markle, they all wore those tiaras for their weddings, and they were well before 5 p.m. Number 3, tiaras are loaned to one person for their entire lifetime. So yes, that's right. So once the queen or whoever is the monarch loans that tiara to that member of the royal family, that tiara is theirs for their entire lifetime, meaning you're never going to see anybody else in wearing that tiara until that member of the royal family passes on to greener pastures. So it's theirs. That tiara is lent to them for life. So a really good example is the Duchess of Cambridge, Kate Middleton. The Queen has loaned her 3 tiaras, and those have been loaned to her for her entire lifetime. And you will recognize those 3 tiaras. The 3 tiaras on loan from the Queen to the Duchess of Cambridge are the Cartier Scroll, the Cambridge Lover's Knot, and the Lotus Flower. The latter two are clearly the Duchess of Cambridge's favorite because we've seen her in those tiaras several times, but she hasn't worn the Cartier scroll since her marriage to Prince William. Fourth rule, tiaras are often sewn into the hair, which actually was new for me to actually discover that. And I'm just trying to think back to my wedding if I had mine sewn into my hair, and actually I'm pretty sure I did. So how it works is the tiara is set onto the head, but of course you're going to be engaging with people. You might be dancing that night, especially if it's for your wedding, and the tiara needs to stay in place. And so what usually happens is that hair will be braided across the base of the tiara, which also in one sense disguises the base of the tiara, so it almost flawlessly and seamlessly comes onto the head. And then from there, once you've done the braid across, that braid then gets sewn into the base of the tiara. And that, of course, is to make sure that it's secure on the head and that you can have a great night dancing the night away without fear that the tiara will fall off your head. Adding on to rule number 4, we've got rule number 5, which is you must disguise the band of the tiara. So of course we know we're going to braid across it, but also you've just got to make sure that it is really, really disguised. So that base of the tiara, usually what happens is that there will be a piece of velvet, the same color as whoever's wearing it. Let's use the Duchess of Cambridge, for example. That would be, of course, a brunette, a darker brown color, if you like, band across, velvet band across the base, so that really there's no way that you can see the base of the tiara. It gets then nestled into the head, and then on top of that, you can usually braid something across. Not always, you don't always have to braid something across, but it can be then sewn into the head. So rule number 5 and rule number 4 are similar, but it's really making sure that the band never gets seen, that it matches the velvet strap or piece of fabric that you're going to use, matches the color of your hair. Then you have the choice to braid across that band even more, and of course, sew it in. Complicated stuff here. Royal rule number 6. Tiaras are loaned officially and specifically. And what that means is that if the Queen has a collection of tiaras, which we know that she does, I couldn't just say, well, this one's lovely, I would like to wear that. You just don't get to choose. And we saw that with Meghan Markle. It was reported, whether or not it's true or not is of course debatable, that there was a tiara that she was interested in wearing, but she was told she couldn't wear that tiara, and the Queen gave her another tiara. So really the Queen can do anything she likes. We love the Queen, but so she can either say, this is the tiara that I'm officially loaning you and it's specific, this is the one you're going to wear, or the Queen might say, here's a small selection for you to choose from, and then obviously lend it to me for the rest of my life. Rule number 7, no tiaras before the age of 18. That is true. So I think we can even look back on, in particular, the members of the royal family now, and I can't think of Princess Eugenie or Princess Beatrice wearing a tiara prior to their 18th birthday. However, for their 18th birthday, amongst members of the royal family, it's common that a tiara is given, or lent, I should say, as a gift for their 18th birthday. Remember, in particular in the UK, 18 is a big birthday over here. 18 is when you can drive, and 18 is when you can drink. So it is a big birthday over here, and thus it would require, I guess, if you're a member of the royal family, a big birthday celebration and a big birthday present, which many of the female members of the royal family received tiaras. Rule number 8, tiaras are only for certain occasions. So after you're married and you wear your tiara on your head, of course, you have options to wear a tiara. Again, the one that's been lent to you for your entire life. But what are these occasions? Well, mostly the occasions are state visits, inaugurations, royal dinners, balls, and of course, we have coronations. Now, if you noticed, at the Platinum Jubilee, the tiaras, I didn't see any tiaras being worn. So that is X. No tiaras for celebrations of Jubilees, but they are for the coronations. Rule number 9, the tiara's history matters. And a really good example of this is Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. It was rumored that she had her eye on an emerald piece, an emerald tiara, if you like, and that she was denied that because of the ambiguous Russian ties that were attached apparently to this tiara. The Duchess of Cambridge, Kate Middleton, was loaned the Cambridge Lover's Knot tiara. And the reason that she was loaned that is because it had been held by a previous Duchess of Cambridge. So history of the tiaras, they do matter. And last rule, rule number 10, tiaras rarely leave this country. Well, I'm speaking of the UK, of course, but what I mean is that tiaras rarely travel overseas unless the Queen orders it. And you can look back at photos of members of the royal family, and it's very hard to find photos of them wearing tiaras overseas. But the exception around that is for foreign royal weddings and diplomatic visits. So there are, of course, some photos out there with members of the royal family wearing their tiara, but as a rule goes, a royal rule goes, tiaras rarely leave, well, probably leave the members of the royal family's house, or really the country that they reside in. So as I said in the beginning of the video, that I actually was fortunate enough to wear the Montague family tiara, and it is a stunning, exquisite tiara. In fact, I got married here at Mapperton House in the church that's actually connected to the house, but I arrived here getting ready for the day and not knowing about the tiara at all. I had no idea that a Montague family tiara even existed. My mother-in-law came in, gave me a box and said, if you'd like to wear the Montague family tiara, you can, but if you don't want to, you don't have to either. So I was given the choice, and of course, as the American, I was like, yes, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm wearing a tiara. It was so exciting. And I just remember the feeling of it being put on my head, and a lot of range of emotion kind of came over me. Number one, I felt like I was being accepted and really welcomed, really with open arms into the Montague Earl of Sandwich family. But also, I had known that another American had worn this tiara as well. And that was my husband's great-grandmother, Alberta Sturgis, the 9th Countess of Sandwich, who came over from Chicago, like me, from Chicago or outside Chicago, came over in 1905 to marry Luke's great-grandfather, the 9th Earl of Sandwich. And she actually wore that tiara. But it looks a little bit different because when she wore it, it really just had the diamonds in front, and many tiaras are added on. It was a very common practice to continue to, in one sense, to embellish the tiara and to add pieces on. So the Montague family tiara that Alberta wore wasn't as sparkly as mine, but I'm pretty sure we've done some research on it, and we think that it was Alberta who added on. On either side, there's brooches there. The base is actually a necklace, a diamond necklace. And so you can take apart the tiara and wear parts of it to dinner parties if you like. So we do think that probably Alberta was the one who added on. Remember, she was this American heiress who came over during the Gilded Age. And she would have either added on probably for the coronation of King George V in 1911, or possibly for the coronation of King George VI in 1937. I'm not sure which one. It is a mystery. I will be exploring this as much as I possibly can through her letters and hopefully uncover something more. And this vlog is all about the royal dress code. 10 fashion protocols the royal family must follow. What are they? Well, let's start with number 1, handbags. So, yes, have you ever noticed that royal women hold their handbag in their left hand? Handbags are a common accessory during those royal outings where a lot of meeting and greeting takes place. Therefore, holding their handbags in their left hands make perfect sense because their right hand is free to wave. It's free to shake hands and it's free to greet the public. Number 2, royal brides must wear white. And of course, a bit of silk on their wedding day. Queen Elizabeth II's wedding in 1947, well, her dress was that ivory silk dress that was adorned with 10,000 pearls, floral designs, and a 15-foot train. According to some royal historians, it took 350 women 7 weeks to make. And the same goes for Kate Middleton, the now Princess of Wales. Not only did she wear white, but the underskirt didn't skimp on the detail. Burton designed the bottom of the dress to resemble an opening flower. And when bridesmaid Pippa Middleton lifted her sister's train, onlookers caught a glimpse of the lace-trimmed layers of silk tulle underneath that gave the gown that gorgeous, gorgeous shape. So back to that incredible Kate Middleton wedding dress. To create the elaborate applique on the bodice, the Royal School of Needlework cut out floral patterns from long lengths of lace and then stitched them onto silk tulle. The design incorporated roses, thistles, and shamrocks, which traditionally represent England, Scotland, and Ireland, respectively. To keep the lace and threads pristine, dressmakers washed their hands every 30 minutes and renewed their needles every 3 hours. Absolutely incredible. I mean, let's all agree, we loved Kate Middleton's wedding dress. Number 3, dresses and skirts should always be an appropriate length. Skirts and dresses should be kept around knee length for royal women. And if they do go above the knee, they should never be more than 3 or 4 inches above the knee on royal occasions. Number 4, the reigning monarch must formally approve, we're back to wedding dresses. That's right, if you're royal or marrying into the royal family, then the reigning monarch will give his or her approval of your wedding dress, as is tradition. Apparently, the late Queen Elizabeth II had to approve of Kate Middleton's Alexander McQueen gown in 2011. And she did the same with Meghan Markle's dress for her wedding to Prince Harry. Number 5, or should I turn my hand around because colorful nail polish is not allowed. Every time a senior female member of the royal family steps out in public, their nail color is always neutral. They either wear subtle pinks or clear polish when on official business because only natural-looking nails are allowed at royal events. And that leads me to number 6, tiaras. Not just anyone can wear a tiara. Tiaras are worn only to the fanciest of royal events, and typically they're worn for the first time by royal brides. Kate Middleton borrowed Queen Elizabeth II's Cartier halo tiara for her wedding to Prince William in 2011, and she has even worn Princess Diana's tiara on several occasions. Be sure to check out my 10 royal rules on wearing a tiara after this vlog. Number 7, you knew I was going to talk about this. hats. Hats, hats, hats. Well, they are part of an old English tradition. For basically every formal daytime occasion, you will see royal women wearing that hat. Apparently, this comes from a very old tradition that women should keep their hair covered. And you only need to look back to the 1950s, and actually prior to the 1950s as well, to see that ladies were very seldom seen without a hat, as it just wasn't right for ladies to show their hair in public. I'm glad that no longer exists. Number 8. What about the men though? What about the men? Well, royal male children typically only wear shorts. Why? Because dressing boys in shorts is a long-standing tradition among British royalty and aristocracy. Boys start wearing pants, aka trousers, around 8 years old, but prior to that age, you'll see many photos of Prince George and Prince Louis in shorts. But let's get back to the women now. Number 9. Pantyhose, stockings are highly suggested. While not technically an official rule, it's definitely encouraged to wear those stockings. The Princess of Wales usually opts for pairs so sheer you can barely tell she's wearing them at all. I think I like those types of pantyhose. Number 10, the last royal protocol. Coats shouldn't be taken off in public. Apparently, this rule is enforced because taking off your coat is once again unladylike. So if you're wondering why Catherine, the Princess of Wales, is pretty much always seen in a coat at official royal events, this is the reason. And there you have it. 10 fashion protocols the royal family follows. I'm here today to talk about dining with the Queen, top 10 etiquette lessons if you like. I studied these tips because I always thought when I married into the British aristocracy, there might be a chance that I actually might meet her. Before you ask, I'll answer, I still have yet to meet the Queen, but I hope one day I will be able to meet her and actually put to use some of, in fact, all of these tips. So from how you dress to how you sit, to how you eat, these etiquette lessons are a must. So number 1, let's start with how to sit in the presence of the Queen, or even as a royal. The legs and the knees must be kept together. We've seen many times Kate Middleton sitting like that with her legs and her knees together, but she also crosses her ankles, which is allowed, and that's been coined as the Duchess slant. But did you know that Princess Diana also sat like this as well? So knees and legs together, crossing at the ankle is fine, and the knees shifting over a little bit to one side. It helps keep your posture intact, and also it makes your legs look a little bit longer too. Number 2, how to curtsy when you see the Queen. That is a must. So anytime you're in the presence of the Queen and you meet her or you're having dinner with her, you must curtsy. But the thing about the curtsy is that it's not about this really deep bend and lifting in one sense of dress. So I think sometimes, and I thought this as well, that it was more like a proper like deep bend in the knees and almost like lifting your dress or to the sides or sticking your fingers out to the sides. No, it's just basically one leg behind the other, and it's a gentle bend in the knees and a slight bow to the head. So I'm just going to keep my arms and hands alongside the body. I'm going to gently bend the knees and a little bow with the head, and I'm back up. So rather than doing it quick, it should be just, again, just a nice length. So the Queen arrives, and you're done. Number 3, dress appropriately. So I'm dressed as if I'm going to a formal dinner party with the Queen. In fact, this is my early 1900s, very long dress if you like. But of course, if you are going to have any type of meal with the Queen or even meeting the Queen, you must dress appropriately. And what that really means is you must wear what we say in America, pantyhose. Over in the UK, we say stockings. Absolutely no mini skirts. What about the tiara? Number 4. When you're marrying into the royal family, you must wear a tiara. And tradition always had it that the tiara that the bride wore would come from her own family. So let's remember that when, past brides, apart from Kate Middleton, when they married into the royal family, they were usually from other aristocratic families that had family tiaras. So that's why we did see Lady Diana Spencer actually wear her own family tiara to the wedding of Prince Charles. But things changed because William married Kate, who didn't come from an aristocratic family that had a tiara. So she borrowed a tiara from the Queen. So did Meghan Markle, and in fact, so did I. So obviously I'm American. I did not come from a family that has a tiara. And so my husband's family kindly lent me the Montague family tiara, and I actually wore that for my wedding. If you were at a formal event and didn't know what to do as far as etiquette goes, please be sure to share your stories down below in the comments. Number 5, how to hold your knife and your fork. Now, as an American, this was probably one of the hardest things for me and something I had to get used to very, very quickly. As an American, I'm really, just to be perfectly honest, was just used to basically cutting my food, putting my knife down, and then eating everything with my fork, stabbing it, putting it in my mouth, and eating, right? Simple. Not when you come over here at all. So, and you will see this all over the country, not just even in the royal family. So fork in the left hand, knife in the right hand. And you always keep the fork holding in your left hand when you've got the knife in the right. So you would cut your food, and rather than stabbing at the food and picking it up to eat, what the royals do, and many others, is they slide the food onto the back of the fork. So the tines are always pointing down. So you would cut whatever it is, and then you would slide that food, it's a balancing act, right? Onto the back of the fork, carefully bring it up and eat it that way. Now there is a quick cheat, which is terrible, but it is a cheat. I use it all the time, and I use it because my husband also does it as well. Cutting the food, and you can scoop the food onto the fork this way with the tines up and eat it that way. It's quicker and it's not so much of a balancing act. So cut, slide, but you would never want to do that in front of the royal family, ever, ever, ever. Number 6, how to hold a teacup the right way. Yes, that is a big one. So how not to hold it is to pick it up and just hold it with your hand, right? How to hold it properly is to use the thumb, the index finger, and your third finger. So the thumb and the index finger goes through the little hole there, the thumb rests on top, and the third finger gives it support. This whole thing about pinkies out, honestly, don't ever show your pinky when you're in the presence of a royal family. That needs to be tucked in as well. I have actually been told that I should never have my pinky out when drinking a cup of tea. Number 7 is leave the table quietly if you need to use the powder room. You don't need to tell the person on your left and your right, excuse me, I've got to leave the powder room, or excuse me, I have to take a phone call, or excuse me. Just say, excuse me, get up quietly and leave. But when you leave and you're in, again, the middle of the meal, the question is, how do you place your utensils? And that is a big thing that I had to learn as well when I came over here. I'm in the middle of a dinner with the royal family and I'm eating. Remember, I'm scooping the food onto the back of the knife and eating it, but all of a sudden I have to leave. So what do I do with my fork and my knife? Cross your utensils, and the fork again stays pointing down, the tines are down. So you're crossing the utensils, and listen, as far as the angle goes, I've seen it many, many different ways. I don't think it has to be in so far, but it certainly isn't like this all the way out. It's just putting them down so the waiter knows that you'll be back. When you come back, you pick it up and you continue eating. However, when you've finished eating, then what do you do with your utensils? I know, right? When you finish eating, you must place your utensils side by side with the tines of the fork up and at a slight angle to the right. Think of it as like 4:20. So on a clock, it's about 4:20, and this is how the waiter knows that you are finished and they can clear the plate away. Complicated stuff here. And what about eating when you're dining with the Queen? Number 8, you must stop eating when the Queen stops eating. If you're hungry, eat quickly and get it all in and get finished before the Queen, of course, puts down her utensils. Of course, the other etiquette as far as eating with the Queen is not just with the utensils and stopping to eat when the Queen stops to eat, but of course you can't sit at the table until the Queen sits down as well. When the courses are served, that gets a little bit tricky. So the Queen sets the pace. She will talk to the guest on the left during one course. When the next course gets served, she will switch and talk to the guest on the right. And so you switch between talking to the guests on the left and the right when the courses get served. But of course, you must always follow what the Queen is doing. Number 9, no autographs and no selfies. I would immediately be kicked out of that royal family. So that is the rule. So the royal family will not give autographs. And of course, the new autograph these days in the 21st century, a selfie is really considered an autograph. And they're not supposed to do selfies either, but I think there have been a couple royals recently who have done some selfies. So we'll see what happens with that rule, but I can guarantee you, you won't ever see the Queen giving an autograph or doing a selfie. And last, but certainly not least, and probably my favorite, number 10, wear a hat to formal events. And again, this is something that we do think of the royals wearing a hat at, in fact, all of their events. But let's remember, their events are always formal. So hats are super important to wear. And the rule really is that you can wear a hat up until 6 p.m. Once the clock chimes 6 p.m., that hat must come off. And tradition has it, if you were going on to another formal event, you would wear your tiara. But I do have some hats that we're going to look at here, which is really exciting for me because I found these in the archives here at Mapperton, and these are at least 100 years old. So the first hat, it matches my dress. I have to take it to a milliner to have it repaired, but we believe that this hat is over 100 years old, and it does match my dress today. This would be the back of the hat. Yep, and this would be, I believe, the front of the hat. So here's the back, and here's the front. Well, maybe I could try to put it on really quickly. It has been eaten by many moths, but it is over 100 years old. How does it look, Stephen and Claire?
It's
good. It's a bit holy. So we're gonna take this one to the milliner and have it repaired. It is repairable, but I just thought this is pretty spectacular, this hat made with beautiful silk. There is, of course, in this lovely hat box, a lovely summer hat as well. So I obviously wouldn't wear this with the dress that I'm wearing, but if I were to go for tea, actually there's a couple here, how fantastic. Which one am I going to wear? I'm gonna wear this one. If I were going for tea and have my summer dress on, I would definitely be wearing this summer hat, and I would have my hair down too as well. So how does it look? Probably not good with the dress though. No, Stephen's like, absolutely not. So I'm gonna carefully put these back in here, but the other one, which is fantastic, is of course men. And what we have here is we found this in the archives addressed to the Earl of Sandwich. Now what's extraordinary about this hat for me is the inside. And again, I'll be taking this, it's in pretty good shape, and you're gonna see how old it is in a second. It's in actually fantastic shape. Apart from the under the brim right here, it needs a little repair because of the moths. But when we look inside the cap, and this is how you're gonna see how old it is, it says, by appointment, hatters to H.M. the King and the royal family. So this is from Old Bond Street, Piccadilly.
hatters to H.M. the King. It even has it on the side as well. So His Majesty the King, that probably was Queen Elizabeth II, our current queen, her father. So this is probably from George VI. It could, though, however, be from George V, and in fact, I'm going to find out about that and see if I can somehow date this and see if it's George VI or King George V. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And of course, we love to hear from you, so do comment down below if you've had any faux pas at formal dinner parties or anything else you'd like me to know.